Discord, and then we can watch it there. Hey, say your thing. It beeped. You can say we're live. Alan, we're live.
And we're live.
Get it set up. I'm gonna grab a beer.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to get you one?
Yeah, please.
All right. 2 beers, 1 for Alan. I got 2 beers, 1 for the both of you. Where's my Mitra? Here you are. Well, you can't leave too. Hold on. I started recording. Hi, guys. Sorry for this. I just, I thought I put the show in good hands. Alan just fucking drops the mic and walks away. Alan, what's going on? I told you I was recording. You just fucking walked off.
Oh, I thought you said you'd be right back.
I said I'd be right back.
Oh.
Why is your camera out of focus? Spit on it.
I don't know. Maybe my internet's. Are you able to? Can you see it in Discord?
No.
Okay, and you can't hear it either, right?
No. Is it playing in your?
Yeah.
So Discord's fucking us. Can you fix your focus? It was in focus a second ago. It's all blurry. Oh, wow. What'd you do to make that happen?
I just hit the buttons.
Do you want me to open YouTube TV and have the audio going?
Sure.
All right. So it's not going to work? Discord's not going to do it?
I guess not.
Can you hear Discord?
I can.
And it's you're not presenting. There's nothing presenting.
Oh, that's okay. Hold on.
Doofus, dingus. We're missing Joe Biden here.
No jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. Employment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of...
Feels like he's skiing downhill a little,
doesn't it? A whole range of things.
A little bit.
That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now.
Doesn't sound like
to that,
beach well.
we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos. Literally chaos.
That's
and
true.
so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people.
Looks like Pepe the Frog.
To $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price of.
To be honest, he just looks like a guy with a stuttering problem.
We're going to get done.
It's not that bad.
Thank you,
Not that bad.
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well.
That's not true.
Everybody
Not true.
was amazed by it. Other countries were copying
Amazed.
us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in
We had a
1929.
manufacturing slump. And
By
you
the
fought
time we
with
finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit
Fought
for
with
the
Trump
economy, a
publicly.
lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates.
Talk about
That was
your
a
vaccine.
disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing
hope
us.
He's not wrong about bounce back.
I hope
you,
he
President
addresses
Biden.
that because that's been proven
Well,
to be
look, the
false.
greatest
I thought
economy in the
I thought that
world.
was true.
He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history,
Ready for that.
$2 trillion. He raised a deficit
Oh, we forgot
larger
to do
than any
bingo.
president has in any one term.
Whatever.
He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President this decade.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that
Do you
doesn't
think it's
drive
bad if
prices
we
even
pause
higher?
it?
It's not going
and
to
just
drive
talk?
them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been
pause it?
ripping us off for years, like
till after
China
this.
and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut.
Yeah, to the rich.
To the rich, to the
Also,
corporate.
the fact that we can't afford to, the fact that our GDP is as bad, to debt is as bad as it is right now, is because we're not bringing money in. I am a former libertarian. I don't want taxes, but like, you can't be like, it's a good thing that we can't service our debt. And why is that? Oh, because we're not bringing in any taxes anymore. And I plan to fix that with fucking tariffs and by not charging you taxes on the first 40 hours. Just tell me how that fixes the fucking problem you're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. I just wanted to point out too, because the whole withdrawing from Afghanistan thing, you brought up that Trump had a plan to withdraw from Afghanistan, but he didn't implement it because the plan was to be implemented if he got his second term, which is true. However, I think that if Obama didn't win a second term and he hadn't, closed Gitmo, but he said he had a plan to do it, we wouldn't give him credit for that. And I don't think we should give Trump.
Oh, but wait, that was that thing.
He
So
said he
that's
wants.
the thing that libertarians shit on Obama for, because I think he said he was going to close Gitmo. And
He did. He did.
Okay, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying, he said he was going to do it and he didn't. What I'm saying is, if he only had one term and he said he was going to do it and he didn't win re-election the next term, and he's like, well, I was going to do it, but you didn't re-elect me. I think we wouldn't give him any credit for that.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Trump
Yeah.
credit for that either. Okay. All right.
Wait,
Let's,
don't look at me, okay?
Okay.
In history. That's why we had all the jobs.
I can't
And the
go if
jobs
you
went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as
You
far as
spent a shit ton of money,
Afghanistan
too.
is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
That's what I'm
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to.
Okay.
The only thing I could find was an old thing of peanut butter pretzels.
Ew. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
You couldn't hear that?
No.
Oh. All right. Back to the show. That's why I told you not to watch. I can't go if you watch.
Okay.
to COVID.
Sorry.
And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax,
This is not a
and
win.
companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was
they do with that?
going like
Pocket
never
it?
before. And we were ready to start
Bought
paying
back shares.
down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with.
Therapeutics.
We gave him something great. Remember,
Vaccines.
more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, when
Something
did people
which a
stop
lot of
believing
people
in
don't like to
vaccines?
talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went
Mandate,
out. He
that's
did a
what's up.
mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine.
People.
And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States.
Not like when you were
anymore.
in charge.
We're like
Yeah.
a third world nation between
Said by the guy that walked in front of
weaponization
the Queen.
his election, trying to go after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame.
Oh,
The
no.
damage he's done to our
Are we
country.
shithole country?
And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions
Pause it,
to come
pause
into
it,
our
pause it,
country
pause
and
it.
destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get
Longer respect.
People from prisons and jails and mental institutions, right? Those are all the people
Right,
that are coming
right.
here. But they're also taking our jobs. What exactly is your job, sir? Go ahead and hit play. Dad sent me that. That was good.
That is pretty good.
We were posting on
Did-
Max.
They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has
I
done
mean, Biden
is
doesn't have an uncle that went to
absolutely
MIT.
criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban.
Hundreds
Former
of
President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block
don't have
it.
standing to challenge
And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
No.
Democrats, Republicans,
That's not
liberals,
true.
conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders.
He's doing his thing where
And
he's
what
like,
I
here's a
did
lie. I'll
is
say it a
I
bunch
put
of
three
times.
great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that
sorry. No,
everybody
hold on.
wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they
It's like 70% of Americans disagree with that ruling. That's absolutely not true.
Yep. But if he
started
says it
talking about how
5
many
times,
weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected,
Look at Joe's
wanted
face.
it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the
Screenshot.
That's a
states
meme
are working
face
it
right
out.
there.
If you
Screenshot
look
that.
at Ohio, it was a decision that was
holding it.
an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought.
Did
Kansas, I would
Oh.
say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now.
Yes.
And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
Internal
The problem
monologue.
they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former
happy
governor
you
of
said that
Virginia, he was willing to do
Jesus
this.
Christ.
He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's
No,
been
it's
a
not.
great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been
Come
a
on.
terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances
Yeah.
are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman
a
who
spicy
just
take.
was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state
Pause it.
lines.
Thank you.
Did he just say that they got raped by their brothers and sisters?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Also, he was referring to that.
Yeah, I know, but he didn't connect the thought. He went.
He
A to
didn't
C.
connect the thought. Yeah, that wasn't.
Good job. It started off good.
Yeah, it kind of went downhill. All right, let's go.
Thank you.
Did some Mountain Dew.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border.
He started
We have
it.
a
He
border
invited
that's the
that.
most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have.
Screenshot that.
Everybody.
Move your mouse. Move your mouse so we can get a good screenshot.
Okay.
Oh, it's not there anymore. Okay. Sorry. I wish I want to. I miss.
I have to have 2 windows, so it's like I got to go back
Okay.
and forth.
Okay. Go ahead.
Could I just say that obviously
But I think Trump just won that argument there. Like to the average
Well-
person, I think he did a good job there.
he did better than Biden. I think that the reason he's bringing up the whole women's rights thing is because he knows he's losing in that demographic, and so he's trying to appeal to them. But I don't think that's going to be an effective argument. For
No, I
people
don't think it's going to
paying
change
attention.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But like dudes arguing in group chats tomorrow are going to be saying that like Trump won on that parlay.
Yes, I think that's probably true. All right, let's keep going here.
Wanted brought
Should be
back.
trying
Ronald
to-
Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents
Fine.
had tried to get it back. I
To the
was the one
states.
to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every
But it doesn't.
legal
Don't we all
scholar
feel like we have
wanted it
less
that way.
control?
Yes.
Staying on the topic
had a
of
choice
abortion,
before, you
President
don't
Biden,
now.
7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions
Trump.
on how
Biden,
far into
close
a
your fucking
pregnancy
mouth.
a woman can obtain an
Old
abortion.
man.
Do you support any
Close your
legal
mouth.
limits on how late a woman should
Close
be
your
able to
mouth.
terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions.
Very
That's
poorly
how it
said,
should be
but well
run.
put.
That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
That means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run.
What's this after
take it
birth
after
shit?
birth. Again,
We
the
know what
governor,
that
former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it.
Oh,
So
pause
he's,
that, pause,
he's
pause.
willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And
You have to be faster at that. Sorry, that's driving me crazy. So he just said that so we talked about this before, where like if you have like some horrific birth defect that we don't know about until you're born, and you're going to die within hours, they have a way of making that less horrific for that 9 hours of life, right?
Right.
So he just said, though, we have a governor of Virginia. I think he said the former governor of Virginia was the one that said that, because he horribly brought it up before.
Mhm.
That's where that story comes from. But I think he's hinting at, I think he might pick Youngkin as his VP.
Oh,
So
that's not even on the radar, I don't think.
I think it's reasonable, though. Don't you think? He's a culture warrior
And he was one of the few Republicans to
that
win.
won during the supposed red wave that didn't.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. All right. Hit play. I'm sorry. Also, forgive me
Kill the
for
baby.
criticizing you about
Nobody
not
wants that to happen, Democrat or
think I figured it
Republican.
out.
Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. That Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state.
not
You can
true.
do whatever you want.
2000
We don't
I
think that's a good
remember
thing. We think it's
2003.
a radical thing.
That was a
We
big
think the
debate during
Democrats-
Bush versus Kerry. For some reason, they were talking about late-term abortions then. Like, old heads are familiar with this shit and probably forgot. I remember that shit because I'm a fucking political junkie. They were debating whether that should be allowed, and the whole thing basically got parsed out that, like, under certain circumstances that would be completely reasonable if it was your wife or your daughter, you would want this to be an available
Right.
option. But if you're going to say, do you want third trimester abortions? You'd say no if you're an ideologue. That's what
Yes.
Trump's taking advantage of here. And Biden did say, no, we're not for that, period. I think
Mhm.
that's good enough for him. He is coming across as someone very nervous with a stutter, though.
A little bit.
More than an old man.
Although I would also say that Trump isn't the same without a crowd.
I think he's doing just fine.
He's doing okay. He's not. I wouldn't say he has this normal energy, but
It's the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of
That
immigration
was
and
good.
border security. President
that was-
Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Can you pause it?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement.
I think so. The timing of that decent answer, the best you can expect from a 1-year-old with a stutter, that decent answer sandwiched after Trump doing marginally well on that, followed up by something he's bad at, which is the border, is like just formulated to be, that's not going to be remembered, because the 1 second he looked decent, they went on to something he's very bad at.
Okay. All right.
Not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, We had the safest border in the history of our country.
Close your mouth.
All he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our
Mouth.
country to
not
people
true.
that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum,
That's
terrorists. We have the
fear-mongering.
largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple
Wait,
Didn't
but
he? Don't Democrats hate Joe for largely keeping Trump's border policies in place?
yes, and also he had legislation, but Trump blocked it. There was a bipartisan bill.
Oh, right. Yeah. There's a separate. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Dude, Joe
of
needs
months
to.
of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that.
Not this time.
They endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al Qaeda person come in and his administration killed three American soldiers. Killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, it's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration,
He's
you
not
said that you're
equipped
going to carry
to
out, quote, the
counter
largest
Trump's
domestic deportation
stream of
operation
bullshit.
in American history,
That
unquote.
wasn't good
Does that
enough.
mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are
Who the fuck are we?
al-Baghdadi and
Oh my
Soleimani,
God.
the two
Trump's
greatest
retarded.
terrorists, biggest terrorists anyone.
Pause it. Pause it. Pause it. Pause it. Pause it.
I paused it.
What just happened? Say it.
he confused when he said that people came
So when
across the border.
Biden said that three U.S. service members were killed
Yeah.
by an Al Qaeda terrorist, he was talking about someone who crossed the border.
Right.
Right, dude. This is a fucking pivot point. If Joe was anywhere near equipped to handle this, he would start dunking on this motherfucker. But he can't. But right now, like, so Biden was like, no, a guy crossed the border, killed three Marines or something like that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And that was the only terrorist that's ever crossed the border. Trump thinks he's saying during Trump's administration, they killed three terrorists, which is something Trump thinks because he didn't practice that Biden is going to attack him for. Right.
Right. And so he's talking about Soleimani. And
Yeah. He's like,
saying,
no, we killed three terrorists. We killed Soleimani. And it's not
al-Baghdadi.
too strong. There was only two. The others were civilians. Oh, wait, no, that was leaving Afghanistan. Well, that was also that. But okay, go ahead.
Anywhere in the world, and it had a huge impact on everything,
Huge.
not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also
Hundreds of
killing our
thousands?
citizens when they come in. We are
Yeah,
living
he's
right
not
now
ready to
in a
dunk on it.
rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his
saying that to
ridiculous,
get people in Tennessee
insane,
upset.
and
There's
very
a reason for
stupid
that, right?
policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant.
Okay, let's fact check this. So what is the current?
While you look whatever you're looking up, I just want to say that was in terms of mimetic transference of an idea. He said every state is a border state now because you can't make people in Tennessee and Kentucky be afraid of South American immigrants or whoever's crossing the southern border without and also connect with his base, which is largely, the Midwest and rural demographics, right? So like in Tennessee, I came from California. I know what it's like to see Hispanics taking your jobs and crossing the border and living here in large numbers. You guys are fucking crazy. They all live in Antioch here. Like, I don't know what you're afraid of. And so you have to make them think that you're in a border state and all the raping and murdering and insane asyluming is going to happen to you too in, Pennsylvania, Illinois and Arkansas. What was your point about fact checking? I'm saying though that was a huge. That's going to be something they're going to take advantage of. That's their new catchphrase-ish thing.
So I was trying to find the murder rate, but there isn't any current numbers. They're all back from like 2020, 2022.
Fucks with that shit too much.
But what he's saying, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed by migrants. That's
Unreasonable number. Yes,
clearly an exaggeration. There's no
Yes.
fucking way that's
Okay,
true.
good point. Yeah, on face, you know that it was not hundreds of thousands. Of
Right.
people.
Just
Also, while the murder rate dropped 15% last year, and
Right.
violent crime and property crime.
Right.
Migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're
Right,
reading
it's
it
up
like
50%.
these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother.
Disgusting to take
and
advantage of.
he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is
Biden's
horrible
got
what's
his mouth
taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally
It's your mouth,
an
Joe.
uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take
I'm
a
telling
look
you,
at
the
where they're
people that are
living.
susceptible
They're
to it
living in luxury hotels
are hearing
in
that.
New York City and other places.
That's winning. That's winning with the people that are susceptible for that, man. Like he is nailing that. It's not accurate.
It's not accurate at all. And also, he didn't answer the question. He didn't say how he intended to make that happen.
Forgot about the whole question thing.
Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been
His
worse.
son.
I had the highest
Right.
approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice.
Why don't you talk about your son that joined the military and died from living
approved,
next to a fucking
they
burned
abandoned.
pit?
We had
Fucking brain cancer. Dude, that's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
What sacrifice have you ever given for this country? It's
Not a-
only helped you to amplify your brand by becoming the fucking president. You're a multiple bankrupt, failed billionaire. You know how hard it is to be a billionaire and lose money? Just buy fine art and shut the fuck up.
by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Wait, hold on. You did the same thing for Obama era policies. Like, if that's what you're saying.
You're suggesting he's projecting?
Yes,
Okay,
perhaps.
I'll write that down. There's a new thought, projecting.
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in. And
President
it's a very
Biden.
sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not
That
a
is
loser,
true.
was not a sucker.
shaking his
You're
head.
the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
All right. So, what do you think of that?
Why would you're gonna just be like, okay, I got a thought about it. He just said you're the sucker, you're the loser.
Dude, that's, I want to see some
I
fight.
hope this gets him out of his fucking stutter. I've interrupted a lot with it, but he is very nervous.
Yeah.
He has, because I've heard the people that he's talked to about his stutter talk about the fellow stutterers that have overcame it. And he talks about like focusing your mind on other things. He has linguistic tricks that he uses. And I've
Mhm.
seen him employ those tricks to try to overcome it.
Right.
That was the first time I've seen him be
That
passed.
was his strongest moment of this debate so far. You could see him get angry about Trump's accusation, as you said before. He said it. His son served and came back and died because he was next to a burn pit, right? That was his best moment.
Extremely rare form of brain cancer that you especially get from inhaling toxic fumes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines.
Name it.
He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19
Esper
people that said I
confirmed
didn't
it.
say it. And think
Yep.
of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence.
Russia was made up by the media because people said it sounded like Marsha. It's a Gen X/boomer joke that nobody young enough to persuade their vote would understand if you explained it. Trump has never understood Russia. He heard it and thought that somebody quoted it. And maybe there is an example of somebody saying it was quoted, but the whole reason it's mimetically popular is because it sounds like Marsha. I only know that because they made a Brady movie in the 90s, which I didn't watch because I'm not interested in the Brady Bunch.
And while we don't have him on mic saying the losers and suckers thing,
Mark Esper confirmed it.
Esper did confirm it. And I would also point out that he did say it on a mic about McCain. He said, I prefer my heroes not to get caught. What is that?
The point is he's about to win this point because and then energy.
Agents are made up. Just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking, it's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
Four-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief. That's what you call him,
to respond to Russia
that we've ever had. They can't stand him.
It's
So
limited
let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's
Like 20
based on
seconds into
every
this, man.
single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine,
Biden smiled.
if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
So the question was, Putin has an outline for how the war in Ukraine can end. Do you think Putin has a point, basically?
Or was
He's
you good
talking about Afghanistan and veterans liking him more than Biden.
Yeah, that's what's happening right there. Also, he's saying that Putin would never have gone into Ukraine because he respected Trump as opposed to
I don't
Biden.
think that a winning point to the moderates is Putin likes me.
No, it's definitely not. Also, this administration was the one that told us this was going to happen. They were the ones that released the intelligence that said, look, Russia's massing troops on the border. They're probably going in. And what would you have had him do to stop that, Trump? Like, what would you do?
No, he would have capitulated. It wouldn't have lasted 2 years, is what he's saying. It would have been over in a week, just like Putin planned.
Right.
That when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded.
Did he just say he knew? He just said that he knew that Putin's dream was to invade Ukraine.
That is what he just said.
Right before that, he said something else that I feel like was worthwhile, but he said something crazy, right? Okay, play.
That's no, but hold on a second. That's
Yeah.
okay.
When we talked in private, when I kicked out all the reporters and I said, people are leaking all our conversations. We need to make sure the next one's really private and nobody takes notes. Remember that?
Right.
Remember when people said I had TDS for saying that was like
Yeah.
fucking insane and violates all kinds of protocol, especially when the guy you're talking to is a former spy. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
So he's saying
He's
that
saying,
in that conversation, Putin told him that his dream was to do this.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, play.
Ever, just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had
He's
no money
jumped
for
around
anything.
so much. I
No
wonder
money
how
for
Biden
terror.
responded.
That's why you had no terror at all during my administration.
ISIS
This place, the whole world
killed
is
him.
blowing up
He
under
got the
him.
credit.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
Yeah, malarkey. Check
We're in a
it.
situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage.
This is, if he pulls this off, this is him proving I can use my brain. So because Trump jumped around 5 different subjects
He bounced
there
all over the place.
and talked about 15 seconds of his response time about that, what the actual question was, right?
Mhm.
And it gave Biden. So this is like classic Tucker Carlson. This is what a Gish Gallop is, right? I'll bring up all these things that you'll potentially argue about. You'll never get back to one point, let alone all 5 of them in your time.
Right.
Therefore, you can't refute everything I just said, right?
Exactly.
Now, I don't think Biden's going to pull this off. But to
Quite
start
the
it
high
off
wire
with,
act.
let's take the last part first. Tells me
Good
that
start.
there is something organized up there.
Yeah, and I was watching his body language as Trump is talking. You can see him like looking down and like thinking,
Yeah.
like processing the information.
Yeah.
And that also seems to indicate some.
Okay.
cognitive
All right.
capacity.
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
For a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it recently.
Brain
Not when he was
damage on the
president.
Tower
Here
20.
they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place. Number one.
Brain
Number
damage.
two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want,
Told Trump.
and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump
Told
did.
Putin.
Putin told.
To
He meant to say
encourage him,
Putin.
do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for
He stayed on
1 minute,
subject,
I just want to go back.
So he flubbed a bit there. He said Trump when he meant to say Putin. It started out.
See why I get him confused.
Yeah, I think he started out pretty well in the response.
Yeah.
By the
He
way,
did hit his bullet points, but he said
Yeah.
the wrong.
they're not allowed to have notes.
Right.
So that was all from just his head.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine if you have AIDS with you, not the disease, if you have AIDS with you in the room while you're making decisions, that kind of brain seems fine.
yeah.
Back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping
Good
the
moderator.
territory
They're
in
not
Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not
Close your
knocking
mouth,
him.
Joe.
I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war
Great point.
settled
Should have never
between
happened.
Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
president-elect?
People being killed so
channels.
needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
Pause it.
You know,
Zelensky said today that within months they will have their terms of settling things because this can't last forever. So good timing to say
Good
something.
timing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he says stuff like that, but he doesn't have anything to back it up. He
Yeah.
doesn't have a plan. He's just a blowhard at this
Well,
point.
I know, but dude, I'm saying Trump's
You're
been.
saying it's going to happen organically. He'll take credit.
I'm saying Trump's been winning this debate.
Okay.
Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle
It's good,
East.
but poorly
In
delivered.
October,
Just poorly
Hamas
delivered.
attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime,
I would just say that it's not only Hamas. As I said in the headline show, Netanyahu has a vested interest in this war continuing as well.
Before you pause it, I'm about to do something very dangerous that I don't advise anybody else to play along with, especially when I already sound like this. I'm going to drink every time he has an obvious stutter.
Oh, dude, do you mind if I get a...
If you can do it can you just hit play and do it quickly?
Yeah.
what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
What the fuck?
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then.
Poland's like, shut
He
the
has
fuck
no
up, dude.
idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to
Pretty good
follow up,
response. Not
would
well
you
delivered,
support
but
the
pretty good.
creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations
Who?
because if you add them up, they're about the
Stop
same
Palestine.
size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, no, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their
Sorry, I like
agriculture.
BMWs.
I changed that. But the big thing I changed is
like
they don't
him,
want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about
Is he going to
this.
keep
I
doing
said,
this? Going
"No,
back to the last
I'm not going to
question.
support NATO if you
It feels like that's what he's going to keep doing. Yes.
Okay, he gets a minute.
Right.
don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's
you.
bills.
Let's turn to the
Let's
issue of
answer about
democracy.
Palestine.
Former President Trump.
Fuck
I wanna
off.
ask
Hold
you about
on. You
January
should-
6, 2021.
Moderator,
after you
do your
rallied-
fucking job. Insist that he answers that question. So he skipped his answer about Palestine
Right.
and talked about how he got NATO to pay their dues, which if you don't take your time to filibuster like that, Biden basically said, like, they're paying hundreds of billions of dollars. Implied in that, if you have a fucking brain, their economies suck compared to ours for now. Like, that's a huge percentage of. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
your supporters that day. Some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that
question.
you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few.
Does that have to
On
do with
January
anything?
6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On
questions in
January
one.
6th, we were respected all over the world.
You didn't
All
answer.
over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at.
You
We're
don't
like
get to
a
lie
bunch
and
of
say we were
stupid people.
respected. It was a joke on
What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is
Now, what happened to the United States' reputation after January 6th was the worst thing.
Yes, and the fact that he had his team undermining a competent old man caretaker president,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
like, look, man, just zoom the fuck out and imagine the way your kids are going to read this in a textbook. They're going to be like, very average president called tyrant and, you know, lizard man and all these things. Like, it's like, no, Joe is like lackluster and boring, like milk toast Reagan, right?
Yeah. Milquetoast Reagan Democrat, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
Jan 6th.
You have 80 seconds left.
he's not
My
gonna- he
question
didn't answer
was,
it at all.
What do you say to
Two in a row.
those voters
Two in
who
a row he
believe that
didn't
you violated your
Even
constitutional
indirectly.
oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the
yeah, but you
news from
did
2
that
days
'cause you
ago,
knew- hold
on
on.
tape to her daughter,
He
Nancy
did that
Pelosi.
hours after.
Hello, Alan. Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if you heard him.
Oh, I was saying, just hold on. So he did that hours after Jan 6 was happening. And he
Yeah,
did
and it took him
because-
3 hours to record a 45-second video. Remember
right.
that?
And he had said prior, you got to fight like hell or you're going to lose your country.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
what? Okay.
And then after, no, don't you remember? It took like, okay, I exaggerated. It took like 45 minutes to record an hour and a half, a minute and a half
Yes.
video.
Because he
He's
kept
like,
saying, I can't say that. I don't want to
I
say
can't.
that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I don't. Well, I can't say that. That'll piss these people off.
Right.
Who's a documentary filmmaker, they say.
Filmmaker.
But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the
Nancy
mayor,
Pelosi's not in.
in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually
get
nothing to
remembered.
do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it.
Yeah, so get rid of the metal detectors and
That's what
get
I
them
was
all
just gonna
riled
say.
up and tell them to walk over there where I'm going to meet you, and then don't meet them.
Exactly. I could see. That's why I said take out the magnetometers.
Dude, Biden is not equipped to argue with this. It's so fucking disappointing. Biden lost this debate, dude. The only chance there is that we're halfway through it.
I was gonna say we still got a long ways to go.
I mean, the only chance there is that he can literally be the tortoise to the hare here, and by the end, Trump just implodes. Trump is like Biden is factually accurate. Trump is winning the rhetorical debate.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The people that vote because this guy inspires them, and Biden is doing nothing against that.
I think he's had a couple of moments. I do think
You're right.
that-
He has had a couple.
Yeah.
Trump's been smart. He hadn't answered the last two questions.
But Trump is doing the thing where he doesn't answer questions.
But
And
people don't care.
He says stuff that isn't true, which is
That
obviously
doesn't matter.
It's easily verifiable.
I know you think that.
Yeah.
And like,
Well,
if you take the middle that is persuadable, maybe a third of them think that. I think most of them are like, you know what? Damn right. He's right.
I think of those 16, 17% of the audiences that said they were going to watch this, who said they could be persuaded one way or the other. I think
That's who I was just talking about. I said a bigger number.
I think if those people watch this and do any fact checking at all, it's going to be obvious to them it was all bullshit.
If those people did fact checking, they wouldn't be in the middle.
They wouldn't be in the middle already. Okay. All right.
You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some
Can you feel it?
National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her, and she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
That was pretty.
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to
Trump's
Minnesota,
controlling
Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed
What is
all
we
of the
were right?
information. They should go to jail for that. If
I
a
have no idea.
Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Trump's
The
going to start
fact
talking
is
about
that there was
improper
no
process.
effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who was convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have.
Perhaps
After a
join the
jury
Discord,
convicted
by the way.
you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out.
The only thing that he has going for him here is that I think that Biden's counting on that being a question later on, and Trump let the air out of his bag early. I think that that's the strategy there. And if that doesn't pay off, that's not going to work. He shouldn't have brought that up earlier. Look at that screenshot, by the way. Can you move your cursor out of the way so it settles down and take a screenshot of that shit?
Yeah, it should go away. Here, let me go here.
That's a cover.
That is the cover.
Close your mouth, Joe. All right.
All right. Go.
Play button.
Out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're
What
not
about the
getting $1
time that you
billion.
asked for money?
If I ever said that,
You got
that's
impeached
quid
for that.
pro quo.
Yes.
That we're not going to
Perfect
do
phone call.
anything.
Perfect.
We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife is pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give an answer.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people.
Do I have to drink the rest of this box of wine if he violates his gag order in a presidential debate?
I think so. Holy fuck.
I'd count on
Although
you.
they
Donald
the gag order was modified.
restricted or loosened. He can breathe a little easier.
So he can talk about witnesses now.
Yes,
We'll
but
see.
he has to start every sentence with "Daddy."
and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done.
The more you
There's
know.
a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming out. he's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches.
That is an authentic
and
origin.
singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother.
That's when
And
very fine people
They
did.
asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides."
Yo,
What American president would ever say
the week that
Nazis
gets
coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is the guy who says
Really?
Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor has, every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods.
All right, so clarify what happened around that.
in the context of the very fine people on both sides, it isn't quite what he said, and I am doing a disservice to not be able to carry his water for him. But it isn't the way that everyone said that he said that, and I'm sorry I can't say it better than that.
So how did that get in the zeitgeist then? Because it's been in the zeitgeist for years and years and years since that's happened, and only now are people saying no, that's not exactly.
No, not only now. No, this whole time people have been saying that that's exaggerated. Here, if you'll allow me, I can look it up.
Yeah.
Very fine people context. I mean, the problem is it's this easy to confirm. So you look at what I said, you will see the question was answered perfectly. I was talking about people that went because they felt strongly. So I got to read a lot, Alan, and I've been drinking.
Here, I can pad for you. So earlier today, I was out. I went to get some stuff, and there was a car in front of me. It was a nice. I think it was like a Mustang, and it had like tinted black.
Talking about something different.
No, I'll get there.
Okay, all right.
I'm padding.
Okay.
So it had like these dark black tinted windows, and it had, you know, how people put like stickers or whatever on their windows for whatever reason, and they had put "You're too fucking close," like if you're tailgating them or whatever. That was what they put on their nice car with nice tinted windows, and they did the wrong version of your. It was Y.
That's pretty funny.
It's YOUR.
So here's the transcript from the reporter asking Trump the questions. Let me ask you, Mr. President, why did you wait so long to blast neo-Nazis? I didn't wait long. 48 hours. I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct, not make a quick statement. I don't need to quote Trump. Let's get to the point where he says very fine people. The reporter says, was it terrorism in your opinion? What happened? Trump's point was that they were there. There were people that didn't want to see a statue of Robert E. Lee get destroyed. And Trump's argument was that he's a good general and you don't have to like him to agree with that statement, which feels like the way to introduce somebody towards like a statement like very fine people. Here, wait, let me do Control F.
I'm just trying to get to the actual point where what was wrong about what.
No, I know. And I know I've been here before. I just can't recall it right now. Sorry.
Should I play some more? And you can...
I guess not, because we've gone this far. It'd be weird to interrupt it twice. So Trump says, excuse me. They didn't put the, so reporter said, so him and the reporter have been going back and forth. The reporter says the neo-Nazis started this. Because remember, there were neo-Nazis at Charlottesville.
They were saying the Jews will not replace Biden's point. With tiki torches.
Yes. Yeah. The neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest, and Trump cut them off. Excuse me. They didn't put themselves. And you have some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. So literally, he said those words. You had people in that group. Excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and renaming the park from Robert E. Lee to another name. I don't know. If you want me to agree with you, I can say this. Everybody that was there was like, fuck you for changing this park from a Confederate general rebel ass loser. Right. Like, I can say that, you know what, if you want to say anything bad about those people, there were people that show up to protest the removal of a Robert E. Lee, the general of the losing side of the Civil War, the people that didn't want to be a part of the country that we're currently in. So yeah, sure. Even when he's saying, yeah, it wasn't very fine people on both sides, and correctly, he was actually talking about people talking about tearing down a fucking seditious bastard statue. Yeah. Okay.
So when he's saying very fine people on both sides, he's not talking
He's
about...
saying not everybody there was there saying Jews will not replace us.
He's saying there are people who...
Some of them were there to defend Robert E. Lee.
Okay. All right.
So, what? It's not much better. It really
it's not. I don't think that's much better at all.
Maybe that's why I could never remember this story right.
Okay. All right.
Because factually, you're right. That's not what happened. Here's the truth. They were there to support Robert E. Lee like normal people.
Yeah.
We're going to end. Hit play and I'll stop interrupting so much.
Carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
I'm so happy. I've never been this happy about a commercial break before.
Thing. All
Any room of your row.
Oh, yeah.
Damn, there's a lot.
Face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at
Joe Biden, why are you
times
killing
the
Black
rate
people?
of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do
Volunteerism and black families sounds way too close to a former economic system that I can remember.
Yeah, I do find it interesting
Look
he's
at
not.
these blacks would just volunteer their labor. I've got a plan for them.
I do find it interesting he's not using the term African Americans.
Oh no, that's a win. That's a win for everybody. Like
Yeah.
white, black. Stop saying African American. What do you call someone that's black from Canada? That's fucking stupid. And I'm glad.
Dude, I remember. I don't know if I've talked.
I
about
remember getting yelled at in 2020 by a black friend of mine, being like, "Look, I don't know what you're mad at me about." Like,
I remember early on this show. I don't know if I've talked about this recently or not, but I remember we were talking about a black person from the UK, and I started to say African American, and then I was like, "Wait, that doesn't make sense."
of course not. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was
don't.
no inflation
No.
when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs.
I just want to spotlight that a little bit. He says they're taking black jobs. Like, what?
That's racist as fuck.
That's racist as fuck.
That's not new. It's fine.
right.
I want to hear what Joe has to say. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, is Neil deGrasse Tyson really worried about? I don't know.
Yeah. You know.
Jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again.
That's true.
And they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves.
Remember,
in a
they had that
position
really
where
big book that had
the
their policy
idea
they were going
that
to
we're not doing any. We put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go back to what he said about the police.
What's the last question he's
Most
been
of the
asked?
police
to
are
answer?
him. Almost
I don't-
every police
I don't know.
group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to
That was Hillary.
Just
That
hold
was
on.
Hillary.
Okay, but so do you remember
Well, that was him.
the kids at the Central Park that were accused
Yeah,
of
Central Park 5. That was Trump.
that was Trump?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I know. But the point is, like, we can have this conversation all day. We're talking to the people that like our show.
Yeah.
Like people that all of us, I'm talking to the people, the listeners and you. We have to deal with people that are thinking Trump's nailing this. The format has not hurt him at all.
I don't know if I agree entirely, but it is frustrating.
Yeah.
All right.
going for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina.
Oh.
He came to me with the idea.
that
It was
your
a great
VP?
idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this
That's not
morning.
true. We
where
talked about it
ever
on the
the
last
best
show,
numbers.
78%, Joe.
He's lost much of the black population.
That's not true.
Because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring
sounds
into our
Hispanic.
country, and they're going to take the jobs. And it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want
is that what this is
absolutely
about?
immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had it.
Well, he
We
said
had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
best water.
And we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything.
Except
And
wind.
yet,
I hate it.
during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever.
Best water
And
pressure
my
ever.
top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and
Oh my
China
God,
nothing,
money.
and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Just grenades.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to, the United States can't get its under control? One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people to learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
That's a good response. He needed to address it.
It is.
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Biden
So I've dealt with politicians
doesn't know what he's
all
talking
my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. So many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security.
They're paying into it.
Onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens.
Okay, hold on, pause. Make that point.
They're not able to pay out on something.
They can't collect on it because they're citizens.
Illegal immigrants. Yeah,
but the money still gets withdrawn from their paycheck.
Yeah, they get fake IDs, and they
Fake social
they
security
they
number.
get a job, and
Right.
then they pay into Social Security, and they don't get any benefits until that fake ID ages up till a point you can get Social Security. Unless he's saying that millions and millions and millions of illegals are using their fake ID to cash in on injury claims, Security benefits,
Disability.
disabilities.
No,
Yeah.
no. So if you are here illegally and you have a job with
You're
a
actually paying into Social Security and
you're
not
actually
getting
paying into it
money.
and you don't get any benefit
Yeah.
because once that gets
But if you're
scrutinized.
an idiot, he made a good point, right?
Okay.
Doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
Forget who asked.
he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people?
What was the question?
Many from prisons.
I don't even remember.
From
Can you hear
mental
Thrash when he's talking?
institutions. Did you fire anybody that allowed our country
Welcome,
to be
Thrash.
destroyed?
Sorry,
Joe,
but-
our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up, go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. the idea that he is doing anything to deal with childcare, he did for virtually
Oh,
nothing.
it was
with
about childcare.
We should significantly increase the child care
Yes, he
tax
remembered.
credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child
Hold on. So if I were advising the president, I would have said the thing you should say to that response from Trump is preliminary data shows border crossings are down 25% since I signed that executive action into law. And I only had to do that because you blocked the bipartisan immigration reform.
Joe's not equipped for this, man.
Yeah, that
But
would've
it
been
is
my-
nice that he has advisors in rooms when
Yeah,
roasts
but
are going on.
so I mean, I'm not saying his response was terrible. I'm just saying that would have been probably the go.
It was a better response because he of the two did address the question.
Right.
Okay.
Let's see what Trump says now.
care more affordable if you want to take your minute?
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
Other things.
And they
Oh,
rate
we're
me. I'll show you. I will show you.
I
And
asked
they
the guy
rate
in
me
a
one of the
bar.
best,
Yeah.
okay?
State fair.
And if I'm given
Nobel
another 4
laureates and
years,
all
I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one that wants
Corporations.
to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire.
You
So
want a
everybody,
tax
including
tariff,
the two of you, are going to pay
10%
4
of
to 5
everything we
times.
import.
Nobody
So
ever
how
heard of
about
this
that?
before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
I just want to say I'm really glad that he got to place the podium in the spot he wanted.
Yeah, thank God he put it on the right.
Great call. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans
he
that
was on
both
the
of you
left?
have made a top priority in your first term, the
Trump's gonna
opioid
end this.
crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out
Trump
my
literally
tariffs because
has
we bring in so
payments
much money
from
with
China.
the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come. But he hasn't done that.
China
But
makes
he
shit
hasn't
still
cut the
anyways.
tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was,
67.
what are you going to do to
So
help
close to being
Americans in the
nice.
throes
Yeah.
of
2 seconds
addiction
away.
right now who are struggling to
Like
get
me
the
and you
treatment they
talking up
need?
a record.
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the
The
2.5,
COVID.
almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border were, it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a
bought
lot.
the dog?
And we were getting very low
certain
numbers,
dog.
very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers.
All right. Fentanyl machines.
Fentanyl machines. Yeah, I'm writing it down.
Might be a good title. I mean, that is true. They got these X-ray scanners to scan
Shut up,
people
Alan.
coming over the border. But all right.
All the people at the border.
Biden lost.
And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many
Biden just
things that we
signed.
had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter.
What?
I think a good guy.
What does this have to do with
and he's over
American
there
history?
because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy
This is
pays it
money.
every time.
I'll just
We
throw
had two
money at it.
cases. We paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump.
Is he quantifying prisoner exchanges?
It seems that way, yes. Hey, we have about 20 minutes left or so. Do you mind if Thrash joins the call?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna.
No, I wish he was here the whole time.
I know. All right, he was in Discord, but I guess he can't hear or see everything.
Oh, I sent you something. If you there's an interface that I think will fix this.
I'm just gonna send him the link to.
Yeah, that's fine. Do the play.
Yeah. How do I?
Can you figure it out while it's playing?
Oh, sure. God damn it. Nope, that's the wrong one.
I'm gonna have a very upset wife. I told her 9 o'clock.
Anna?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, et cetera. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump,
Close your
to
mouth.
follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart.
Bragging about
his
his
to hit
golf.
the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
This is happening?
I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one.
Hey, give me all the meth.
And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds. Or
Nice.
225 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway. Just
what your
take a look at
intake
what he
form
says he
says.
is.
Jesus,
Take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
This is happening?
We're talking about golf handicap.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
Let's not act like children.
President
Joe.
Are you
Trump,
fucking
we're
kidding
Let's
me?
not act like children.
Neither of them.
You
RFK
are.
Specific
right now.
concern
Brain worms.
that voters have about you.
Are you
Will
fucking
you
kidding
pledge
me?
tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept
Alan, forget
the
about
results
trying to
of
get
this
this shit
election,
linked. It's not gonna
regardless of
happen.
who wins, and you will say right now that
Send it.
political
Get his
violence
email.
in
Add
any
it to the
form
group. Send me
is
the email.
unacceptable.
I'll add it.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that.
Ask him to
Jim.
text
It's
you.
totally
Yeah, I'll do it.
unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great
Got his
again.
catchphrase in.
We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. Okay. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were president.
Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Pause after this.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you
after this.
Oh, keep it going.
Well, I just wanted to let Thrash introduce himself. Also, you get some feedback, Thrash. That's all. Sorry, you got a little feedback.
Oh, I'm saying Trump, like, diverting every question. He sounds like a toddler. Like,
he does, but he's fucking winning the discourse, the rhetoric.
It's like he's like a toddler trying to explain that him hitting his sister was in fact not his fault.
Yeah, I know it is like that. I know
it do be like that. All right, let's start.
All right, let's hear what Biden says.
Continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there was all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back.
Oh, God damn it.
Presidential debate live from Georgia.
I'm so happy we get to fast forward. We're almost done.
exploring the
Season with the New York.
America's competitive. It's my cardiologist.
It's
Damn.
weird that the
Best
Suck.
dude, there's a lot. I know.
As predetermined by a coin toss, we're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
God. So glad he got the
We've
podium.
made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability
Nailed it.
for the
Nailed
us
it.
to
Good
be
thing you
able
got
to
the podium.
negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies.
That was
Well,
rough.
guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much
closing argument.
prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the
knows
government
this is
doesn't have to pay the
right?
exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior.
Apparently, the
all
B12,
longer is happening now, and
Apparently
everybody
what?
in America
The
wants to get
the
rid of that.
B12 shots.
I'm
Clearly,
going to make sure that we
Yeah,
have
wearing off.
Yeah, it's starting to wear off.
B12's wearing off. Yeah.
For sure.
childcare.
Not
We're
these.
going to significantly increase the credits that people have for childcare. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you,
We're gonna
President
have
Biden.
unleaded
President Trump,
gas.
you now have 2 minutes for your closing
Lead
statement.
pipes?
Like so many politicians, this man
So
is
glad he
just
had
a
the right
complainer.
podium.
He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He
What did
doesn't
you do?
All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened.
gave
Iran
him a
was
dramatic
broke.
zoom in. Are you
Anybody that
noticing
did
that?
business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke.
That's
They had no money for
cinematic.
Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We
You were
have
4 years.
the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history.
Corporations.
The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on.
Biden has said
All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett
All right,
starts
we're done.
now on CNN.
We are done. I'm going
Close that shit. Let's have a little recap, and I'm gonna eat some late dinner and get yelled at.
Okay, I'm gonna stop presenting.
I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks perhaps it has something to do with the fact that I always had something to say when Biden was talking. I don't think that's what killed his steam. I think he had no momentum. He barely got to any of his points. He did a shit job, but his podium was on the right-hand side of the screen, which
All right, so I think that Biden scored a few punches here and there, but Trump dominated the narrative and just threw a bunch of bullshit out there. I also think that that closing, fucking that.
what the fuck did I mean? I can recap the closing in a meme from Americanist memes, one of the most
It was
annoying people
fucking
on Instagram.
terrible.
Thrash, what do you think about Americanist?
I get on his nerves all the time, and
But he
it's
also makes
very,
good points sometimes, right? Like
yeah,
he's very annoying because you don't completely hate him, right?
yeah. I like responding to his stories and things and annoying him, but he's not like completely out there.
Right. So he said, here's his take. Biden. Oh, actually, it's a Twitter take he shared. Biden, look, the fact is, we don't look. Here's the deal, and it's no fooling. And here's Trump in response. There are 10 billion Guatemalans attacking the Lincoln Memorial right now. That's the debate. That was the whole debate.
Look at.
I mean-
Did you see the post that Bull Moose did?
No, I haven't. I was making a meme for the cover of the main show the whole fucking time. Like it took me all day to do that.
I mean, some of the numbers Trump threw out in that debate were just obviously absurd. Like it was just like there's millions of people. Like it was just like what, dude? But if you're
Trump is like Bin Laden has risen from the grave and is currently escorting people across the Rio Grande.
southern border, yeah. But if you are an uninformed voter, you know what? I think you're probably leaning towards Trump after that. If nothing else convinced you. So I don't know. That closing was fucking horrific.
Yeah.
Lead pipes? What the actual fuck?
Dude. Yeah. I mean, he might as well have said unleaded gas, right?
We're gonna get rid of all your gas stoves. Jesus Christ, man.
So overall, I think the consensus is Trump won the debate.
I think that
Well, how do you frame that?
so I think that if you are an undecided voter going into this debate and you want to watch it and see, who comes out on the other side,
Who looks like a living human being?
sure. I think that Trump won. Yeah.
Now,
if
who
you're-
made better points that actually like
well,
had to do
factual
with-
points? How about that? Like I would say like
who do you think could be trusted a room full of all of their advisors and cabinets when a decision actually has to
Biden.
happen?
I mean,
I would
the
still
Crypt
rather,
Keeper certainly sounded a little less unhinged.
Say
Yeah.
that again, Thrash.
The Crypt Keeper certainly sounded a little less unhinged.
Yeah, which is hardly an endorsement. Which takes honestly, I think. Look, I think as somebody that had hoped that Biden would actually show up like he did at the State of the Union, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I think in terms of how this will affect the campaign, I don't know. Thrash, maybe I'm out of touch. What do you think? You're younger. What are the kids thinking? What would the kids say to this?
Most of my friends refused to watch it, and the one that did said that it was just painful, and I agree.
Okay, well,
I mean,
it was
they're not
painful to
wrong.
think of, though. Like, I mean, just the thought of this happening was pretty painful. Like, do
Yeah.
you think that they would be persuaded by Biden stuttering and being basically predictable? I had hoped that Biden would live up to.
I mean, the State of the Union was really good.
I expected that. I expected that.
I don't know that I did expect that. I don't think that he does as well when he has to respond to Trump. I think he gets caught in the he stoops to Trump's level.
And he starts stuttering and getting nervous and uncomfortable. And
Yeah, I agree.
That
It's-
feeds into
he's
the stuttering.
Like
And
presentation.
Huh?
Yeah, presentation.
Lacks presentation. Is that what you said?
Class. Like he's presenting like a project or something. He starts stuttering when he has to answer questions.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. He's like, so if you turn the projector's not working.
Right.
Guys. Yeah,
He
exactly.
definitely does better with notes and a teleprompter for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that if you were, let's say you're on the fence and you were questioning Biden's mental faculties to be the president, I do think that he showed himself capable to respond and sort of riff in the moment. It wasn't great, like you're saying, Thrash, but it also wasn't like this dude needs to be in a fucking senior home. Like you can't.
I mean, a 6 handicap certainly.
Well, and then the second
Run
later he
it.
said an 8. He's like, Trump called him out on 6. He's like, okay, it was an 8. You heard that, right?
Yes.
It was a pitching story. He's like, it was this. Okay, it was this big.
This
Like,
is so much.
stick with 6, you son of a bitch. You're already lying.
This is like the George Bush saying I like baseball outside, but like on steroids.
Dude, that's a great, but and in that case, Trump was the George Bush in that scenario, right?
The fact that it
Yes,
devolved into who has the better handicap or the better drive on the golf course is just
My golf club's bigger than yours.
Like, I can't believe how much bait was dangled in front of Biden, and then finally the golf game was what got him.
right.
There was so much shit that he teased him with, and finally he's like, "You son of a bitch! You listen here. When I was vice president 71 years ago, I had a 6 handicap. All right, fine, it was an 8. Like,
Well, also if you're trying to appeal to like someone
average
who's a
person
centrist,
is like, let
average
me tell you
person,
about this elitist game.
I don't think you're
that's played on
swaying Gen Z by talking about your golf
golf.
skills.
Let me tell you about this skill I have on this place where all of these houses could be, that none of you will
Oh
ever
my
afford to set
God.
foot on. Now, when I step foot on there, I have a 6 handicap. Now, you might be thinking what a handicap is. That's the governor of Texas. Guys, it won't get better. I'm not going to be happier than that. Can we stop this?
Let's go. Yeah, that's
All
we're
right.
good.
Thrash,
all right.
hey, you've inspired me. I think we might do this more often. Maybe during the show, during the normal show, we could have the other people join and keep them on mute. We're gonna have to keep them on mute. It's a trust tree because we can't mute y'all. But if they join on mute, we should have like a tiny group of like one person that joins. It's gonna be one person. I don't want to stop this.
All right, man. Let's land the plane.
All right.
I'd be glad to. It'd be
All
fun.
Well, whenever possible, you're always welcome. Guys, thank you. I'd like to say this was fun. This is just a fucking East Palestine train wreck. Drive safe.